We'll record to the computer. Okay, perfect. We are recording. So like I said, if you're not comfortable with that and you want to keep your camera off, totally up to you, but we are on. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Paige Kerstetter and I am a registered dietitian here at Boston Medical Center. You are in the WellSense Health Plan class. So they are the one who is sponsoring our class today. Let me just make sure my captions are on. Enable, perfect, okay. We're all good. Sorry about that. Tonight's class is brought to you by WellSense Health Plan. So if you're interested in these classes and you want to keep coming to them, at the very end of the class, I'll put the calendar link for all of our other classes, including WellSense, so you won't miss any of them. So hopefully you like this and you get to come back and maybe check out some of our other classes we have. And this is one of my favorite classes because we get some really good participation from our participants out there, and we do a food demo and we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition and cooking. And if at any point you have any questions and you're comfortable, please feel free to unmute yourself, throw them in the chat. I do my best to watch the chat. Sometimes I get a little preoccupied, especially if I'm cooking or cutting or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and put the recipes back in the chat again since we've had some comments in there. We are making chili and very perfect for this January post-holiday weather. A nice comfort meal, but we're gonna make, that traditional chili with a twist. We're gonna add some veggies to really give it some extra. Terry says, I don't see you. So Terry, right now I have my workspace spotlighted. So just in a moment here, I'm gonna go ahead and start my food demo. I can spotlight me for a second so you can see me. Hi, this is me. I'm kind of just up there with all the other faces. I'm going to go back up with everybody else. Perfect. All right. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and get started with our cornbread. We're going to kind of play around. We're going to hope that it's done in time for class to be over. I played around with the recipe. It wants me to use a cake pan, but we're going to do muffin tins to see if we can speed it up. Then we're going to jump over to our chili. So let me just pull up my recipe here for reference. We'll go ahead and get started with our cornbread. And I think I better shut my window because it's pretty chilly. All right. No pun intended that it's getting chilly. Well, chilly tonight. Okay, so I'm making a delicious cornbread, and I honestly love, love, love having chili with cornbread. I love that sweet, starchy, delicious bread that pairs really well with the spicy chili. I would love to break it up into my chili. I know some people kind of have it on the side with maybe butter and some honey. You can have it however you'd like. So I'm just going to follow the recipe that I put in the chat here. We started out with 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And then I'm going to do about 1 cup of cornmeal. Then we're going to do about 2/3 cup of granulated sugar. See if I can get this out. Here we go. 1, 2. You can see my camera's trying to focus.
Is that Dr. Rubin? No. It was it.
Let me just make sure there's nothing on there, guy. Yeah. All right. Okay, there we go. That focus. Next, we're going to add our baking powder. We're going to do about 2/3 cup. People here.
Oh, I don't know.
I hear some background noise. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself unless you have a question, that would be wonderful, just so that way it doesn't distract others. Perfect. Okay. We're going to go ahead and do some baking powder, and we're going to do 3 1/2 teaspoons. So I got 2, 2.5, or 3, sorry, 3 1/2. All right. I used to have 1/2 teaspoon, but I accidentally lost it down my garbage disposal. So we're just going to use our eyeballs there. So let me just check the chat here. You're going to make tonight, but I made chili. Oh, that's perfect. See, it was just a perfect day for chili. I love it. Then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. I just have some granulated salt here. Great thing about these recipes is that they're pretty quick and you can do one and then the other. So we're going to whip together this quick cornbread and then we're going to transfer over to our chili. And we have an hour together at class tonight. So hopefully we'll be done just in time to try this together. All right. So we got this guy. Now we're going to add our milk. I have 1 cup of milk here. I need to do 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and I have some canola oil here. I'm just going to pour into my cup. All right. My veggie oil. And then I'm doing 1 egg, and I'm actually going to crack my egg into my liquid measuring cup just in case I get some shells. I got some farm fresh eggs from a neighbor, and I do not want to drop that into my ingredients. And then there goes my 1 egg. Perfect. All right, we're going to whisk this up. We don't want to over whisk our batter because sometimes if you over whisk them, you can kind of break it and it can become runny. You can also make your product tough. That's kind of a general rule of thumb whenever you're mixing dry and wet ingredients, unless it explicitly says to keep mixing. If you continuously mix it and mix it and mix it, it can form gluten and it'll make a product tough. So that's why we usually try to just mix to well combined. I'm sure you see that a lot in recipes. Mixed to well combined is like the perfect way to describe what you're trying to do there. I'm going to get my whisk out of the way. I'm going to have a little scraper here. I'm going to just scrape the sides to make sure I don't have any wet ingredients. Make sure there's nothing else on the bottom. All right, we're good. I'm actually going to just grab my muffin scraper really quick so I can put them into my muffin tin. Let's check the chat. All right, Jasmine asks, where will we be able to view the recording after this is done? That is a really wonderful question. I think Ashley is here with us tonight if she wants to answer that in the chat. If not, I'm not 100% sure. I believe it will be on WellSense. But I can look into that. I know you'll have access to it some way, somehow. I'm just not quite sure. I'm going to guess through some form of WellSense. Will maybe be posted on the website. This is the first time trying this to make sure I actually record it correctly and I'm doing all the right stuff. So hopefully this one will be accessible. Ashley says, yes, we will be posting on the social media channel on WellSense. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Thank you for answering that. I knew you would know. I'm filling these about 2/3 of the way. One of the nutrition topics I kind of wanted to talk to everyone tonight about is corn. So let's just ask this question. Do we think corn is a vegetable or a starch? You want to let me know in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like to. What do we think? Starch or vegetable? Starch. Vegetable starch. It's a starchy vegetable. Marianne says starchy vegetable. All right, we got a combination. So actually, it's both. Corn can be both of those things. It truly just depends on the time that it's harvested, which I thought was really interesting, especially going through nutrition school in my bachelor's and my master's. People always ask me about corn, and I would get really confused because it was hard to describe it until I understood it was just at which point it was harvested. So when it's fresh and you get it, fresh from the garden or fresh from the farmer's market and it's on the cob and it's meant to be eaten like that, that is considered a vegetable. So yes, it is a starchy vegetable, but it is a vegetable. But when it's harder and it's harvested later and then it's pulverized into a type of powder or pulp here, it's considered a starch and it's actually a whole grain, right? So if you think about it, I'm sealing my bag before I flip it over to show you because I do not want to lose my contents. It is just whole grain corn. So this was waited till the very end of harvesting. It got really dry and some chemical things happened there where, the starch completely transformed. It lost more water and became just more of a dense starch. And it's a whole grain, so it's awesome, right? So this is a perfect thing to add to our chili because our chili is a lot of protein. We got some fiber from our beans. We got some non-starchy veg with our veggies in there. This is perfect to add with it because we're adding a whole grain. We're kind of balancing our meal. So I think that's a really cool fact about corn. I know sometimes people, like I grew up, everyone loves corn where I'm from. We eat corn, potatoes, and meat. That's like, the three things that you rotate for your meal. And as I got older, I kind of grew sick of corn. So it's really cool to know that it actually can fit into that vegetable portion, but it also is a whole grain, right? Popcorn, whole grain snack. I love to have popcorn as a snack. We have these guys 2/3 of the way full. I do have some extra here, but I don't want to waste any more time on the cornbread. I want to go ahead and get these in the oven so that way they can bake. When they're in a pan, a cake pan, it's about 25 to 30 minutes. So I'm hoping since we have some little muffins here, we're going to get 15, 20 minutes till they're done. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these in the oven at 400 degrees. All right. So next, we are going to start our chili. Let me just wipe off my workstation here. Get my measuring cups out of here. Corinne asked if I greased my muffin cups. I actually did not. I kind of just put them in there like that. Sometimes, depending on the brand of muffin cup that I used, because I used some paper, they don't really stick. And then sometimes if I spray them, depending on what material they are, it like leaks through and makes everything really greasy. So I'm kind of just going to risk it. If I would do it again, I might do it with no cups and just a vegetable spray. That's why I got this out, but I'm kind of just trying not to waste too much time on the cornbread. You can grease it if you want to. That might just be a preference, in my opinion, for what I'm working with. The first time I made this, and not this recipe, but I made cornbread, I followed the ingredients and the recipe's instructions for the original recipe I had, and it actually wanted me to make it in a cast iron skillet, which I thought was really fun. And I have a mini skillet. You know what? I have my mini skillet right here. Let's fill it up really quick. I bet we'll see how long it takes compared to the muffins. All right. Little itty bitty cast iron skillet. Let's dump it in there really quick. I actually gave it a quick spray. We're gonna dump it in there. Why not experiment, right? Let's see. I bought this little cast iron skillet for when I go camping, and I don't know how it ended up inside, but I just keep using it since I've been making a lot of cornbread and chili. I bet this will turn out just as good. Perfect. It's just a little mini skillet about the size of my palm. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in the oven quick. All right. That one's just an experiment. We're gonna see what happens. If I would have thought about it beforehand, I would have melted some butter in there and heated up the skillet, but we're just gonna see what happens. We'll have access to the recipe after both the chili and the cornbread after. I could put them in the chat again, but I believe, yes, we will make sure that with the recording that you have access to those. So I wouldn't worry about it. I can put them in at the very end also, just in case, you want to snag them if you're trying to get them sooner rather than later. All right, for our chili, we are adding some sneaky veggies to our chili. I love doing this. I grew up on a very meat-heavy chili. We would have steak chunks and ground burger, a lot of venison, kind of stuff like that, with just a little bit of beans. So I love this spin on the chili. And now that I make this like once every 2 weeks, and I add veggies. And you can play with this as you want. It's a good framework recipe. So I'm doing zucchini because I think zucchini is a really nice veggie to add in things like that. Because Debbie asked if we put it in the oven. Oh, I put the skillet in the oven, not on the stovetop. Good question.
The operating system or on a label.
Oh, I
If you're
think
using
someone's
Windows, the
unmuted.
key press combination will show the system information. For laptops, press Function and Escape at the same
I
time.
don't think that's my
For a
computer.
desktop
Do you
or
want to make sure
all-in-one,
you're muted,
press
everyone?
Control, Alt, and letter S together. The system.
There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and go through some knife safety with our zucchini here. So I'm gonna do a fresh zucchini, and I'm also gonna do some frozen sliced bell pepper to add to my chili. I love doing this. It really boosts up the nutrition. We add some sneaky veggies. You can't even really tell with the tomato and the spices in there. It really complements the texture, helps with the beans. I think it's really nice to kind of just switch it up and make chili this way. So let's talk quickly about knife safety. When it comes to knife safety, when you're walking around in the kitchen, you always want to walk with the knife pointed down, and you want to hold it like this, knife tip pointed down. You don't want to walk with it standing straight up in the air, like in the Halloween movies with Michael Myers chasing people with knives. That is no. That's not what we want to do. We want to walk with that pointed tip down. We want to keep it close to us as well. When it comes to holding a knife, we want to pinch and wrap our fingers. We don't really want to do this. You know, this is a common thing. Just what the issue with this is that it's very easy for your finger to kind of slide off. It's not really gripping this appropriately, so you have a higher risk of maybe having an accident. And we don't want an accident. So we want to pinch and we want to wrap, right? Pinch and wrap. Our other guide hand, right? This is what we call the bear claw, or as I've heard on a cooking show, it's like an eagle's talons where they kind of just claw and grip them. We want to keep them underneath here. We don't want to chop with our fingers out. We want to kind of keep these fingers pulled back. And what I mean by that is, for example, when I'm holding my zucchini, I kind of naturally just want to keep my fingers at a curve so I don't chop them right off. It can feel unnatural if you don't do this very frequently. You know, if you're the type of person that holds it like this, it can feel very unnatural. Over time, when you start to practice, you kind of will just naturally curl your fingers under. And I promise you, you will save yourself from losing the tip of your finger or some fingernails. Because sometimes I'm rushing and I don't think about it. And I take off the tip of my fingernail and I think, oh boy, that could have been worse. I'm just going to check the chat really quick. Do you need a special type of skillet to put in the oven? For example, my skillets have handles. Can they go in the oven? So I use the cast iron skillet, which those are oven safe and stovetop safe. Sometimes things like Dutch ovens, you know, if they're made out of that material, can be oven safe, but that's something you would have to check. Things that usually have like a plastic handle are not necessarily oven safe. I know cast iron is. Cast iron can go in the oven and on the stovetop. I'm not sure about other types of skillets. And if you don't know, I would just err on the side of caution and probably not do that, or check online with the manufacturer to see if it is an oven safe material. Like I have frying pans that are not oven safe because they kind of have a fake wooden handle. Those are not meant to go in the oven. I usually just use my cast iron if I want to like kind of saute something and then keep it warm in the oven, or even like braise it in the oven. So I'm not 100% sure about that. I would check. But back to our zucchini. So we're going to go through some dicing here with our zucchini. We're going to cut the tip off, and you'll have to excuse me. I'm cutting like lingering over my phone here. So I just have to kind of cut at a weird angle sometimes. All right, we're going to cut the other tip off. We're dicing this zucchini. So we're going to kind of cut the slab down the middle. So we're doing slab, sticks, and cubes. That's a really nice way to kind of think about when you want to cube something. So we're cutting these into slabs, right? We slab them. Now we're going to cut them into sticks. And cut this other side into sticks. You can see how my fingers are kind of curving. And then we're going to cube them. The zucchini's kind of wide, so I'm actually going to slice some of these in half again because I don't want a super huge chunk as a bite, right? I want them a little bit more manageable. Like this guy's a little too, there we go. Perfect. All right. Now we have our sticks. We cut into slabs. Now we have sticks. Now we're going to cube them. Let me see if I can move my tripod this way. That doesn't seem as easy for everyone to see. That seems a little bit better. All right, I'll just work with this. All right, now we're gonna cube it. So for me, it's easier when I line them up, and I'm actually gonna do less at a time just because I have the tripod right in front of me here. I'm gonna keep these hands curled back because naturally over time, I kind of just do that by default. And we're gonna go tip to back. And it's okay to go slow, right? I mean, I'm not a super fast chopper. I sometimes tell myself, oh, I'm a pro, you know, I teach cooking classes, I can go fast. I don't always go fast and almost cut the tip of my finger off. So even people who think they're professionals are not always professional and the most safe. All right, got these perfect little pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and slide them out of the way. And we'll do our other side here. Bear clawing it, we're gonna tip to back. All right, perfect. Now we have some really nice uniform sized dices, which is really perfect when we're cooking because, you know, for example, if you look, because some of my zucchini wasn't all the same size when I cut them into sticks, some of them are a little bit smaller. So I just want to watch out when I'm cooking that they don't cook significantly faster than something like these. Because I'm kind of making a stew, like a soup stew hybrid with my chili. I'm not as concerned because we're going to be simmering them in liquid versus sauteing them. So I'm not as worried, but in the future, you want to try to make sure they're all super uniform. All right. Next step is we're going to kind of transfer over here. So I'm going to need to take my computer and my tripod with me. So let's bring the computer. So we're going to the stovetop. Computer. And tripod. And now I have my Dutch oven pot. Let's go ahead and roast our veggies. So I'm going to turn on my stove top. I have a gas stove, so it should heat up rather quickly here. And let me just pull up my recipe for reference. I like to have that in the background just in case. All right, so I did want to let everyone know that I sometimes like to demo onions, but I have really, really sensitive eyes, and the sulfur in the onions when I cut them make my eyes water for a long time, and I didn't want everyone to see me cry. So we already have our onions pre-diced, and I like to cheat and buy minced garlic because sometimes I just don't have the extra effort to want to go and peel and then mince the garlic. And that's okay. It's totally okay to buy stuff like this. It's really appropriate. It's even okay to just use powdered garlic, right? I always try to remind people that there are swaps that work for everyone and they add flavor, and we want to add flavor. It makes things delicious. I'm adding a little bit of oil to my pan here. I just have a little bit of olive oil. You could use avocado oil, you could use canola oil, whatever oil you want. And then we are going to go ahead and start sauteing our onions. And I'm going to grab my spatula so I can stir those boys around. Actually, let's use this. This might be a little bit easier. Stirring that guy around. Still heating up a bit. All right. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to let that onion saute just a little. Once it heats up. Once that sautés a little bit and it starts to get cooked through a little translucent, we're going to add our garlic. We want to add our garlic after our onion because garlic can burn quicker. It takes a lot less for it to heat up and start to brown. So when you're cooking a recipe that has garlic and onion, my recommendation is to cook your onion a little bit, about 2 to 3 minutes, and then add your garlic so you don't burn your garlic. I learned that the hard way from years and years and years of just doing them both at the same time because they just felt, you know, they're aromatics. Let's just add them at the same time. Well, I learned that garlic can burn quicker. So now I realize I just was wasting a lot of garlic and I was getting that burnt garlic taste, and it doesn't really highlight the flavor of garlic. This recipe is really nice because it's a framework recipe, so you can really adapt it to however you want to make your meal. So I am going to add, like I said, zucchini, and I'm going to add I have some frozen bell pepper strips. If you have fresh bell pepper, that's perfect. You can totally use that. I just love, they're like in little tiny strips in here. Just as inexpensive. Peppers can be very expensive. So this bag was pretty affordable. I think it was like $2 or $3. And you get all the colors. You can choose whatever veggies you want. Trying to think of another veggie I would use. I could do some like frozen spinach or frozen kale or something like that. That could be tasty. I like the zucchini because it's pretty mild. It'll take on a lot of flavor from whatever else is in the dish. So it doesn't take too much away from the other food. I am using dark red kidney beans. Sometimes I do black beans. And I'm using ground chicken tonight. If you are vegetarian, you could use tofu, you could use tempeh. You could just do beans. You don't even really need to have another protein source if you didn't want to. So our lovely, lovely onions are cooking through there. They're looking nice. I can smell them. Is anyone cooking along with me tonight, or are we all just watching? Got some watching. That's totally okay. I love watching cooking shows, so I would probably like to watch someone cook like this too. Madeline is cooking. Oh, we have cooking and watching. Awesome. For those of you cooking, how's it going? Are we doing good? Do you have any questions? Ashley couldn't wait to eat her cornbread, so she made it yesterday. I love it. Did you like that recipe, or did you have to change it up?
I added a few things. Sorry, I could put it in the chat.
No, that's fine. You added a few things. I was told that the recipe that I put originally lacked the flour and the sugar, which felt necessary for cornbread. So
Yeah.
perfect. I believe this recipe makes 6 servings. So far loves it. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad your daughter's helping. This is great. We have lots of people cooking and watching. Awesome, awesome. Sometimes it's just watching classes like this that give you a bit of inspiration to try a recipe a different way. My fiance loves when I make like wild game chili. So we have some venison and elk in the freezer. So I'll cut up like venison steaks and do ground elk and make it more meat heavy for him. And he likes to dip it with tortilla chips, which is wonderful. That's like, you know, his jam, that's his thing. You can really truly make this however you want, which is awesome. And I love sneaking veggies into chili because sometimes I just hate eating raw veggies and I'm kind of tired and I don't really want to have to think about it. Let me just check the chat here. Taking diligent notes as I watch. I'm 31 and I've never cooked a thing in my life. Oh my gosh. Well, we have another class called Healthy Habits where we kind of break food down into macronutrients, which is a really great class too if you want to get a little bit more info on food and cooking in general. But the Well Sense class is awesome. We do great stuff in this class. So I'll have leftovers as it's only me in the household. Yeah, and honestly, you could probably, if you have a plastic dish, you could probably freeze half of this if you froze it tonight. Sometimes I do that with like stews since it's a little bit bigger and it's got liquid. If you have leftovers, try to, you can repurpose them in different ways. You could, like I said, you could kind of almost eat it as a salsa with chips. You could even almost put it like in a tortilla with some cheese and almost make like a quesadilla with this as the inside. I don't know, just thinking of random things you could do. There's lots of stuff. See, my garlic's starting to burn. I'm getting distracted. All right, now I'm going to add my veg. I'm actually going to add a little bit more oil. My pan is heating up rather quickly. All right, we're going to saute my zucchini, and I'm going to go ahead and throw in my bell pepper strips. And like I said, these were frozen. I pulled them out about 30 minutes ago to let them kind of get up to room temperature. And if they're frozen, they are going to produce a little extra moisture in there, so don't be super worried about that. Stir it around. I'm sorry, I keep smacking into this. Looking good, smelling good. Oh, Mary Ann says on a baked potato to put your leftover chili. That is a great idea. Or even like chili cheese fries. You could do so many things. And this recipe is awesome because we have sneaky veggies and it's going to get more veggies into our day. And if we want to eat it on top of French fries, we so totally can because everything in moderation, right? Right. Making sure the chat's good. Perfect. All right, we're going to keep sauteing these guys here. I got to make sure I keep a better eye on them because so my garlic was starting to burn. This is what happens when I get distracted. I also am not very used to cooking with gas. Sometimes my gas stove gets the best of me and it heats up pretty quick. Yep, you can add meat or poultry. I actually have some ground chicken we're gonna throw in here next after we get these guys browned. I'm gonna move my tripod out of the way here really quick and just take a peek at the corn muffins. Oh no, my corn muffins browned pretty fast. Whoa. All right, we got our corn muffins. They're pretty brown. They actually smell pretty good. They don't look burnt, they're just more brown than I thought they would be. All right, so that was about 18 minutes. My skillet's looking good though. Give this guy another stir. All right, let me check on my skillet and then maybe it's time to add our meat. All right, I think my skillet's good. All right, this is the skillet. Oh, I love how tiny this little skillet is. I hope it doesn't stick really bad, but you never know. All right, turn my oven off. Got my cornbread skillet over here. Ha. Move this guy back over here. Taking you guys on a wild ride with the tripod. All right, we are ready to go ahead and add our protein. Looks like our veggies are pretty soft, which is what we wanted here. I am adding ground chicken. Like I said, you can add whatever you want. Ground beef, you wanted to add turkey, you want to add, steak chunks, you want to add tofu, add whatever you want. If you were to do tofu, this would be the point at which, you had already strained your tofu and chopped it up into little tiny pieces. And then I would make sure you try to get a good sear on all the sides. Just like I'm browning my meat. I'm going to go ahead and add some salt and pepper in at this point as well. Just some fresh ground pepper. That cornbread smells so good. I could eat cornbread every week. It's kind of dangerous. I feel like I eat it and just inhale it. And I love to put some honey and butter on mine. All right, we're gonna let that meat cook a little bit more and then we're gonna add our spices. We're gonna do some ground cumin, some oregano leaves, and some chili powder. There are measurements in the recipe, but I'm gonna tell you my philosophy is you measure with your heart. I don't love spicy, so I do a little less of the chili powder, but I love cumin, so I do more of the cumin. When you're cooking, you can kind of really play around with your spices to see what you like more or like less. If you really like spicy chili, you could have even, when you're doing your veggies, added some diced jalapeno. You could use some cayenne, some red pepper flake. I probably will put some red pepper flake on top of my fiance's bowl just because he prefers it spicy, whereas I like it to have some flavor, but I don't really want that huge kick. All right. I'm gonna keep stirring this guy. I always find that ground chicken is usually kind of mushy is not the best word to describe it, but it's like very watery and kind of just lumps around. All right, we're gonna stir her around. Maybe I'll crank our heat up just a smidgen. All right, we're gonna let that guy keep cooking. All right, we're gonna let that brown a little bit more. I'm gonna take the tops off my spices so we can get ready to add those guys. Just checking the chat here. All right. Looking good. I'm so happy to see lots of people on watching and cooking. This is awesome. This was a great recipe to have all of these folks on here tonight. I think that's awesome. All right, this is looking beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my spices here. Like I said, I measure with my heart. If you're the type of person who's still learning how to cook and you feel nervous, go ahead and get your teaspoons out and measure. As you get more used to something or as you make a recipe more than once, you kind of learn what you like and what you don't like. All right, this is chili powder. All right, I'm gonna take the top off my cumin. I love cumin. It's a wonderful spice. And then some oregano leaves. Take the top off of this guy. I love oregano too. Give this a good old stir. All right. After we let this meat brown a little bit more, we are going to add our canned beans and our canned tomatoes. And beans are honestly, when people talk about superfoods, I don't think they really understand what a superfood means. Like when you say a chia seed is a superfood, it has some really great benefits, but I feel like if we're going to name a food a superfood, I would say a bean. Beans are superfoods that are really underrated that people forget how awesome they are. They are packed with vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, protein and fiber. Those are the two main ingredients in satiety, right? So keeping us full at meals. Having a balanced meal keeps us full. So we want to have a good amount of fiber and we want to have a good amount of protein. So beans, I think these guys are an awesome superfood. You would be surprised, and I mean, if you think about what you yourself eat, you would be surprised. Not a lot of us really eat our recommended amounts of fiber. I believe for females, it's about 25 grams a day, which seems like, oh, okay. But if you actually look at what you're eating, especially if you're eating a lot of white bread, white pasta, white tortillas, you're not really probably getting that much fiber. If you don't eat a lot of veggies, it's not that easy to get a lot of fiber. But beans, let me tell you, powerhouse. I love making, black bean brownies. I've been really into doing like beans with some sausage and like frozen veggies, like some butter beans, like big lima beans as like a lunch. I always try to have beans once or twice a week. They are a real true superfood in my opinion. All right, now we are going to add our beautiful red beans. Like I said, you can add any beans. Last week when I made this, I used black beans. And my tip for you is when you buy beans, either buy no salt added or low salt. And I also recommend that you take, because 5 milligrams is still in here, so I'm not super worried about it, but you want to rinse your beans. I try to rinse my beans at the bottom. Some of the juices still made it in there. But you want to rinse your beans to try to reduce all that extra sodium. You never really taste that sodium anyways, so it's really nice when you can rinse it out because then you're not getting an excessive amount of sodium in your recipe without even really being able to taste it. I went ahead and added my can of tomatoes. Now the recipe called for 28 ounces. I'm just doing 15. My fiance doesn't love tomatoes, so about 1 can is just going to work for us because I cannot eat all this chili, so I gotta feed him too. And like I said, it's kind of all in what you want. If you really like the diced tomatoes and you want to add more, do the 28 ounces. I did the 1 15-ounce with half of that can refilled up. So I took the can after it was dumped and I filled it halfway up and I dumped some water in there just to give it some more liquid. Just checking the chat here. We're looking good. All right, this is the point at which the recipe, technically, we need to simmer for 30 minutes. And we only have about 15 minutes left in class. So we might not actually have time to taste it together, but as it simmers, the flavors kind of work together. They become very tasty, magical. They get more flavor. The flavor becomes more deep, all that good stuff that happens when you simmer it. But we'll let it sit for about 10 minutes and then we'll taste it together because it's going to just taste even better later. So I want to give you something to kind of work with as we're in class here to really know how it tastes. So let me pull our muffins over and our cast iron, and you can see how I burnt my muffins. Okay. I can't believe we did this. I can't believe they got burnt. I even have like a little timer. Gas stoves are so unpredictable for me. I had never had them until I moved. So I've had this for about 8 months and it's still a tricky business for me. All right, we're gonna let this guy simmer. I'm actually gonna grab the lid and throw on there quick. Bringing this over here. All right, let's check out our cornbread. Here's our skillet and here's our significantly darker muffins. See, and I didn't even put any spray on these guys and they didn't stick too bad. Let's see. Ooh, that looks beautiful. And they're not insanely hot that it's burning my hand. Let me give it a taste. This is a lot better than that original recipe. I do agree that the flour and the sugar was well needed. I don't necessarily think I can taste the difference in the flour, but I think it pulled some more moisture. Those look nice and moist. They're not burned. I know they got a little bit darker than the other one, but they're still really good. You're right. They are not burned. Let's go ahead and cut our skillet. I think I'm gonna like the top of this like this. This is actually like a really nice texture. It's not burnt, but this might be one of my new favorite cornbread recipes. I'm gonna be honest, I usually just use what's on the back of the cornmeal. Whatever recipes there is usually what I'd use. This was pretty good. Pretty simple. Make sure I don't touch this. Ooh, this one feels really soft. It's still pretty warm on the inside, so it's kind of crumbling a little bit, but ooh, this is so good. Let's just cut a little corner. Oh yeah, it's still pretty hot in there. That cast iron's really holding the heat. You can kind of see the steam. When it sets a little bit more like this guy is pretty room temperature now. This is still pretty hot. That's why it's gonna crumble. But oh boy. Delicious. How are we doing at home? Did anybody make cornbread? Did it turn out okay? Ashley says, what add-ins do you suggest for the cornbread if you want to kick it up a bit? I add brown sugar, honey, and a bit of cinnamon. That's probably exactly what I would say. I would love to do brown sugar and honey, but I don't know if I would want to cook it with honey because I feel like sometimes you can't necessarily, like the corn has a natural sweetness to itself. I would rather like make this guy swimming in honey. Cinnamon sounds amazing. Just like a hint of cinnamon or even a little bit of nutmeg. I think brown sugar would be a really nice swap. What else would I think? I think you answered your own question. I think you took everything that I would have suggested. What about anybody else? Do you have any suggestions of what add-ins? sour cream, cranberries. Ooh, diced green chilies. Ooh, this reminds me, in my other class, someone was telling me about how you can make chili and put it in a casserole dish. And then make the cornbread like batter and put it on top and then you bake it. Kind of like a shepherd's pie, chicken pot pie kind of deal. And people told me about putting cheddar and jalapenos in the cornbread. I felt like there was a lot going on there with that, and I like Googled pictures of it and it sounded amazing. But I like being able to kind of just like have the muffin and eat it outside of the chili. But that sounds like a really nice casserole idea. Jalapeno. I love the jalapeno idea. You could even do cayenne, that's what I'm thinking of. Like a little bit of dried cayenne powder. That would be perfect. All right, let me see if I saw anything else. Some sour cream, some cranberries. You could do a nice jelly. I think that could work really well. You could do like a nice layer of butter, and then you could add some jelly. Cornbread's awesome because you can make it sweet or savory, right? You don't really have to choose what you want it to be. I'm gonna grab a bowl so we can go ahead and maybe plate a little bit of our chili together and talk about it. Here is our bowl. I have some cheese here. I'm gonna get a drink of water from all this cornbread. All right, let's see our chili. Oh yeah, she's really going. Turning that down. She's a bubbling away. You can see some of my liquid is reduced a little bit already. This is such a beautiful, vibrant color. I'm really excited. The first time I made this, I did black beans and ground turkey. Now I did ground chicken and red beans. I'm curious if I will really notice a difference. I think I'm a lover of all beans, so I don't really think I personally notice a huge difference. The more you'll cook this, the longer it simmers, the more delicious the flavors will get, more intense. But you know what? We need to kind of talk about this for class. So it's okay if it's not its absolute peak right now, because I know if you're making it at home, it'll just be better. Ooh, beautiful, beautiful. I don't have it handy right now, but I have some plain, not vanilla, not unsweetened, plain, like not unsweetened, not flavored, Greek yogurt in the fridge. I would put that on top of this instead of sour cream. You 100% can use sour cream. I just find that if I buy sour cream specifically for chili, I usually end up not finding anything else that week that sounds delicious that I want to use it with, versus if I have the Greek yogurt, I have the possibility of, you know, having more of a lean dairy with protein that I can use for smoothies, that I can use as a sour cream alternative. I can use in tacos. I usually find that it's a little bit more versatile for me, so I would slap some sour cream on this guy. Let me go ahead and pull this back. Let me grab a spoon. All right, so let's do a little taste test. My cheese is getting a little melty. All right, let's give it a quick little taste. And then we can kind of wrap up, and I will go ahead and turn the recording off in case anyone has any questions. So let's see. I don't want to talk with my mouth full. So good. I love the texture of the zucchini in there. Because sometimes when it's ground beef and I get a bean, the textures are kind of too different that it throws me off. With the zucchini, with the bell pepper, it's soft. It really complements those beans and that tomato. And they really work well together. I think as this simmers longer, they'll get a little bit more soft. And the beans will be a little bit more, I don't want to say mushy because that sounds like not what we want, but like a little bit more creamy. It'll be wonderful. I'm just checking this chat here quick. Ashley says, okay, the recording will be up on Facebook in the next week or so. She put the link in the chat there. And Ashley, I also put the link to the YouTube in there as well. I will go ahead and throw a couple more links in the chat really quick. I will actually go ahead and stop the I'll stop the recording and then in case anybody has any questions. So we'll go ahead